Good morning, children. In previous chapters, you have studied the economic policies that India has taken in the last 7 decades and the outcome of these policies with relation to the various developmental indicators, providing minimum basic needs to the people and reduction of poverty have been the major aims of independent India. However, we need to know where we stand today. Poverty is not only a challenge for India, as more than one-fifth of the world's poor live in India alone, but also for the world where about 300 million people are not able to meet their basic needs. Poverty has many faces, which have been changing from place to place and across time, and has been described in many ways. Most often, poverty is a situation that people want to escape. So, poverty is a call to action for the poor and the wealthy alike. A call to change the world so that many more may have enough to eat, adequate shelter, access to education and health, protection from violence, and voice in what happens in their communities. To know what helps to reduce poverty, what works and what does not, what changes over time. Poverty has to be defined, measured, and studied, and even experienced. As poverty has many dimensions, it has to be looked at through a variety of indicators, levels of income and consumption, social indicators, and indicators of vulnerability to risk and socio political access. Who are the poor? In all localities and neighborhoods, both in rural and urban areas, there are some people who are poor and some who are rich. Pushcart vendors, street cobblers, women who string flowers, rag pickers, vendors, and beggars are some examples of poor and vulnerable groups in urban areas. The poor possess few assets and reside in kacha hutments with walls made of baked mud. The poorest of them do not even have such dwellings. In rural areas, many of them are landless. Even if some of them possess land, it is only dry or wasteland. Many do not get to have even 2 meals a day. Starvation and hunger are the key features of the poorest households. The poor lack basic literacy and skills and hence have very limited economic opportunities. Poor people also face unstable employment. Malnutrition is alarmingly high among the poor. Ill health, disability, or serious illness makes them physically weak. They borrow from money lenders who charge high rates of interest that lead them into chronic indebtedness. The poor are highly vulnerable. They are not able to negotiate their legal wages from employers and are exploited. A large section of poor people do not even have access to safe drinking water. There is evidence of extreme gender inequality in the participation of gainful employment, education, and decision making within the family. Poor women receive less care on their way to motherhood. Their children are less likely to survive or be born healthy. If India is to solve the problem of poverty, it has to find viable and sustainable strategies to address the causes of poverty and design schemes to help the poor out of their situation. However, for these schemes to be implemented, the government needs to be able to identify who the poor are. For this, there is need to develop a scale to measure poverty and the factors that make up the criteria for this measurement and need to be carefully chosen. For the purpose of defining poverty, we divide people into two categories, the poor and non-poor. The poverty line separates the two. However, there are many kinds of poor. How to categorize poverty? The chronic poor, always poor and usually poor, but who may sometimes have a little more money. Example, casual workers are grouped together as the chronic poor. The transient poor, the churning poor who regularly move in and out of poverty, small farmers and seasonal workers, and occasionally poor who are rich most of the time but may sometimes have a patch of bad luck. Non poor, those people who are never poor are the non poor.